Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, something is very wrong. Something is very, very, very wrong. As I said on X last night, something is rotten in the deep state. There's now no question. So here is now the absolute latest. As many of you know, in some sense, the Epstein files is one of the most important stories of our time. It's clearly one of the biggest scandals in American history. And the question now is, why have the files not been released? As you know, Jeffrey Epstein presided over a sinister global sex trafficking network in which he used underage, sometimes boys, mostly underage girls, where he would throw the most wild, lavish sex parties, there's just no other way to put it, on his infamous island that he privately owned called Orgy Island. And he would fly some of the most influential, powerful people in the world, not just here in the United States, but in the world, on the infamous Lolita Express. And he was clearly blackmailing very powerful people. In fact, that's how he became a billionaire, through sheer blackmail. Pam Bondi has the Epstein files, or at least she says she has the Epstein files. There are thousands of them. There are videos, thousands of videos of Epstein with young children, thousands of child porn videos, and of course what everyone is interested in is the client list. There are very, very, very powerful, influential people who were being blackmailed, caught on camera at his island, at his mansion, with girls that were way younger than 18 years old. Let's just leave it at that. So the question now is, Trump has asked, in fact, he's demanded that they be released. Pam Bondi says they will be released, but they haven't been released. And the delay now has gone on from days to weeks to now months. And so the question is, what has happened to the Epstein files? Several days ago, in one of the most incredible interviews I've ever heard in my entire life, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, who spearheaded much of the investigations into the Biden crime family, gave a shocking admission. Comer said that he believes that the deep state has destroyed the Epstein files. And not only have they destroyed the Epstein files, he believes that Pam Bondi either never had the Epstein files, or if she had them, she no longer has them. And that the Department of Justice either doesn't have them, or they never had them. And he went on to explain that he spoke to Kash Patel, now the FBI director, Stephen Miller, Trump's basically right-hand man, his top advisor, deputy chief of staff, as well as other very powerful people within Trump's inner circle. And he said, I spoke to them during the transition, after they won the election. And I said, you've got to go personally and get those files, because if you don't, they're going to be shredded. They are not going to allow the American public, they're not going to allow you to get your hands on this incredibly incriminating, damaging information and evidence that can put them and so many other people in jail forever and destroy their careers. I want you to listen now to Comer saying, I think the reason why we're not seeing these files, because they've been destroyed. Roll cut 18, Mike.
the Epstein files, obviously, that's like finding a unicorn in Washington, D.C. You have come on and talked about that on this program, just for the sake of transparency, which is very big for you. And so, in closing, any motion on that, any movement on that? We hear that there's a timeline now.
I hope James has the Epstein files, because I don't think the Department of Justice has them, or at least the Attorney General does not have them, or she would have turned them over. The President ordered them released. The Attorney General ordered them released. We all know they have not been released. And one of my biggest fears that I had, and I expressed this was Kash Patel and a lot of people, Stephen Miller, and a lot of people going into the new administration. I'm like, I hope they're not shredding documents right now. This was a few weeks before the transition. I said, I hope they're not shredding documents.
And then he went on to say, I think they destroyed him. He goes, you want my honest opinion? And I'm quoting now directly. He said, I think they have probably been destroyed. Now, this set off, I cannot tell you, shockwaves across Washington and across the entire media landscape. Why? Comer's not a bomb thrower. Comer's not some wild man who makes crazy, wild accusations. Whatever. Look, I think he should have been much tougher on Biden. I think he could have been much more aggressive on the Bidens. But he's almost like an accountant. This is a guy who's known for following evidence, following the money, getting the receipts. He's very methodical. This guy dots his I's, crosses his T's, and he's the chairman. This is the key. He is the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. In other words, he's the guy that does oversight on the deep state. No one knows the deep state better than Comer. And so Comer then, so he was asked, he goes, you got to elaborate on this. Like, why would they destroy them? Are they trying to protect the Clintons? Are they trying to protect Bill Gates? Comer turned around and said, look, I've dealt with the deep state. They're not here. They're not shredding documents. They're not destroying evidence to protect Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton. He used those two names in particular. Or Bill Gates, another name that he used. So that tells me right away that he probably knows they're on the client list. Okay, he knows. So he's saying, look, wink, wink. We know who went there. We know who engaged in these gross sex crimes and sex abuse and really rapes against these underage girls. But they're not protecting Bill or Hillary or Bill Gates. He says that what they're doing is they're protecting themselves. And this to me was the most fascinating of the whole interview, where he said, my fear is that our government used the Epstein files to blackmail or control or intimidate some of the most powerful, influential people in the world. In other words, we knew that young girls were being abused. Our government did. They knew that girls were being exploited and molested and raped, but they allowed it to continue because then, once having them on tape, they could use it to control, to blackmail, to influence. God knows what they did with it. And they know that if the American people find out that they allowed these sex crimes to take place in order to go after or control or blackmail some of the most powerful people in the United States and around the world, it will be the mother of all scandals. It will bring the entire establishment crashing down. The American people will never forgive them. So, the question now begs, this begs the question, has Pam Bondi been lying to us? Because she told us a long time ago, no, I've got them. I've got them all. She says they're on her desk. So, Pam Bondi was asked to respond to Comer's incredible allegations. Mike, how much time left? Roll cut 17, Mike.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm that? We still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
So she says she's going to call Comer and talk to him about it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you. I mean, this mystery now is just deepening and deepening and deepening. What do you think has happened to the Epstein files? Do you agree with Comer, House Oversight Chairman? Do you think they have been destroyed, or many of the files have been destroyed and shredded, and that Pam Bondi really doesn't have them, or doesn't have all of them? Bondi has adamantly denied it. She adamantly denied it again yesterday. Now, let me just make a couple more points, and then I want to take as many calls as I can, obviously. 617-266-6868. Who do you believe, Comer or Pam Bondi? And do you feel that we will ever see that client list? Will we ever get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about the powerful, influential people that were on Epstein's Island and were caught on camera doing some of the most unspeakable acts towards underage children and underage minors? Will we ever know the truth? 617-266-6868. If Comer is telling the truth, and he's not a liar, I'm not saying Pam Bondi's a liar, please don't get me wrong, but Comer's not a liar. So if Comer is telling the truth, when I heard the interview and then I read the transcript, and I'm like, well, then we've been lied to. If they destroyed the files or destroyed a good part of the files, then when we were told that, the Attorney General had them, the FBI had him, that they handed him over, she has him on her desk, now they're just going through it with a fine-tooth comb, according to Pam Bondi. They want to redact all of these obscene, lewd images and protect the identities of all of the victims, these underage girls predominantly, that they have on tape. And that's why she says it's taking so long, because this is a very cumbersome, long process. Okay, fine. But if Comer is telling the truth, then you've been lying to us. I mean, to our face. So that's point number one. Point number two, why would Comer then make such an explosive allegation? He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He's in constant contact with Pam Bondi. He's in constant contact with the Department of Justice. He's in constant contact with the FBI. That's what he does. He also he's always investigating the deep state. So why would he make this kind of a sensational allegation, an explosive allegation? Something is wrong. That's what I said on X last night. I go, something is very wrong here. Now, I want to play Pam Bondi again. So Comer comes out, does this incredible interview where he says, look, I feared it from the beginning. I told Trump's team. I told people that I knew he was going to put up for FBI or whatever, most powerful people in his administration. They're going to destroy those documents. And in fact, there's one point in the interview where Comer says, come on, look, let's get real. He goes, do you really think that they're going to allow to have this file where you have some of the most powerful people in the government, in the United States, in the world, committing crime after crime after crime, including members of our own government. And when Trump comes in and says, hand it over, they're going to say, okay. Like, here it is, all in a nice, neat file. Here it is. Here's all the pictures, all the videos, all the, the damning evidence. Here it is on a silver platter. He goes, yes, that's the way it should work if you have an honest, transparent government. But he says that's not the way the deep state works. They're there to cover up their power, their abuse, what they have done. And that's what this is about. This is about the government covering up what he says was a blackmail operation, that they were using Epstein and using the Epstein files and all of the incredible tape and video that they had. And he said, we were blackmailing people. We were blackmailing them on issue after issue in order to control them and bend them to our will. And if this all comes out, the entire establishment is going to come crashing down. Bondi almost scoffed. I want to play the cut one more time at the suggestion that somehow she was deliberately slow walking this, or that some of the files had been destroyed. I want to play the cut again. Here's Pam Bondi asked about James Comer and his claims that those files are gone or they have been destroyed or shredded. Roll cut 17 again. Mike.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm the status of them? We still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, 2 quick points, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. When she said, I'm going to give him a call, I'll be honest with you. Now, you may read it in a different way. I'm just giving you my honest assessment. I'm thinking, is she going to set him straight? You know, is this almost like, hey, look, hey, dude, shut your mouth. You know, like, hey, Jim, you're not helping here. Just keep quiet, okay? It almost sounded like a threat. I mean, I don't want to overstate it. But it was almost like, yeah, listen, you're making us look bad. Shut up. Okay? Jim, talk about something else. Talk about the Bidens. Talk about, the Biden crime family. Talk about something else. Okay? But when it comes to the Epstein files, shut your mouth. Okay? Close it. Now, secondly, we don't care. To me, it's a bit of a red herring. I'm looking at this and I'm like, no, Pam, look, I don't know if you're deliberately not understanding this or if you're being coy. So I don't know if it's one or the other. With all due respect to the victims, and I feel extremely bad for them, we're not interested in the names or the identities or the pictures of the victims. I mean, sure, we're interested and we want to make sure that they get justice, obviously. But it's not like we want to know this name and that name of this victim and of that victim. No, you don't have to release the pictures with the victims. What we want and what the country is clamoring for and the heart of this scandal is the client list. Release the client list. In other words, release the names of the powerful, influential people, the billionaires, the politicians, the celebrities who went to Orgy Island, pardon my French, but that's what they called it, who went to Epstein Island and were molesting and raping and sexually abusing underage minors, in particular girls, and who were then caught on tape and we're being blackmailed. That's what I want to know. Was John Roberts there as an example? Could that explain why this Supreme, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is ruling in the most erratic, volatile, contradictory ways? We want to know which Democrats went, which Republicans went, which world leaders went. And we also want to know, was our own government using this to blackmail people in order to break them, control them? Okay, 2 questions. Number 1, who do you believe? James Comer or Pam Bondi? Now, in a way, they both might be telling the truth. Many, in other words, a good chunk of the Epstein files, maybe the most incriminating, the most explosive, the most damaging, may have been destroyed or shredded. And they still have, Epstein with children and child porn and, Prince Andrew, and pretty much now O'Keefe has dropped the hammer on Prince Andrew. I don't know if you saw that, but they had one of his undercover people struck again, and it's pretty obvious that, members of the royal family, Prince Andrew, were diddling young girls, and they've got him on tape. So, they may throw a couple of celebrities in there, but that the bulk of the files, the most damaging, explosive aspects of the files have been essentially destroyed or shredded. But they still have all these other videos. So, in a sense, both can be true. But who do you believe? Do you believe Comer, where he says, I think they're gone. I think they've been destroyed. They've been shredded. Or do you believe Pam Bondi, where she says, no, you're going to get it. You're going to get everything. But look, it's tens of thousands of documents, pictures, videos, tapes, with a lot of young girls, a lot of victims. There's child pornography involved. So we want to redact their images and their names because we don't want a single victim to, be outed and to be utterly destroyed and humiliated if, their name or identity comes out. Now, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but we're not interested in the names of the victims. We're interested in the names of the perpetrators. And all you have to do is release the client list. Not the flog. I don't want the flight logs. I'm not talking about people who flew. That's important, but we already know that. I want people that were Epstein's clients and people that were there on that island. That's what we want. The names of the perpetrators. That you can release. And for whatever reason, she's not releasing them. Now, my theory is I think it's because it's not just Democrats. I think there's going to be very powerful Republicans. I think people very high up in the Republican Party. I think maybe even members of the Supreme Court. And I think maybe they're petrified of what the backlash and the fallout of this is going to be. And so they'd rather just, hush hush and just sweep this under the rug. And I think furthermore, I think Comer is a very brave man for having said what he said. Because I think the truth is our government was using these tapes to blackmail people. In other words, they allowed unspeakable crimes to go on and even go unpunished in order to advance their agenda, to control them, to manipulate them, to blackmail people. I mean, we're talking now about, as I said, this could be one of the biggest scandals in American history. And so the government never wants that to get out. And they will destroy what they need to destroy, and they will threaten who they need to threaten to make sure this never sees the light of day. So, let me ask you, it is the Kuhner, Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Siding, Roofing, and Windows. Do you believe the Epstein files have been shredded? In other words, is Kuhner right? Do you believe the Epstein files have been destroyed? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. You can also vote via X. Again, I was active on X last night talking about this very issue. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in National ER. I want to play the Comer cut one more time. And this is the crux of what he said. Roll, cut. Now remember, this is a man who was the top investigator against the Biden crime family. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. His job, literally his job, is to conduct investigations and oversight of the deep state. Roll cut 18, Mike.
The Epstein files, obviously, that's like finding a unicorn in Washington, D.C. You have come on and talked about that on this program, just for the sake of transparency, which is very big for you. And so, in closing, any motion on that, any movement on that? We hear that there's a timeline now.
I hope James has the Epstein files, because I don't think the Department of Justice has them, or at least the Attorney General does not have them, or she would have turned them over. The President ordered them released. The Attorney General ordered them released. We all know they have not been released. And one of my biggest fears that I had, and I expressed this with Kash Patel and a lot of people, Stephen Miller, and a lot of people going into the new administration. I'm like, I hope they're not shredding documents right now. This was a few weeks before the transition. I said, I hope they're not shredding documents.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Okay. Have the documents been shredded or destroyed, or at least a good chunk of them? And who do you believe? Comer or Pam Bondi? 617-266-6868, because someone's not telling the truth. Someone is making something up. The question now is who? All right, let's go to Paul in New Hampshire. You're going to kick us off, Paul? Thanks for holding, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff. 3 words. Big, beautiful bill. This is the second time I've called, and the second time I've said big, beautiful bill, and that everything revolves around this. Because if this is as big as you say it is, and I think it is, all hell will break loose. That even includes the rulings from the Supreme Court. They're biding their time. They can't afford to drop this nuke right now. As soon as the bill's passed, it'll be released. Now, as far as the theory, everything's been shredded. What they haven't shredded.
Okay, lines are jammed. Kuhnerman's inbox is pouring with emails, and the text line is on fire. Let me just, before, I want to go back to Paul in New Hampshire, but I just want to read one very quick text because it sums up the feelings of so many of you in Kuhner country. And this is from 781. Again, the text line 70470-70470. Jeff, I don't understand. How can Comer say the files were destroyed when Pam Bondi says she has the files, she's had them for weeks? Something doesn't smell right. 781, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's just either one person is lying, so someone is lying or exaggerating or making stuff up or embellishing. Nothing about this is making any sense. Except I can just go by the facts. They told us months ago that the Epstein files would be released any day now. Any day went to a week. A week went to a couple weeks. A couple weeks now has gone into you'll get them when you get them. Because we're working around the clock and there's just so much and so many things we got to process and diligently comb over and protect the identities of the victims and the names of victims and the images of victims. And so they're trying to, it's almost like they're trying to turn this into a multi-year project. And that makes me very, very suspicious. What are they hiding? Who are they protecting? And what are they trying to cover up? Agree, disagree? Let's go right back to Paul in New Hampshire. So, Paul, you think a lot of this is revolving around the big, beautiful bill, that they don't want to rock the boat. They need as many votes as possible for Trump's agenda to succeed. This could even affect the Supreme Court. And so they're going to hold off on this until that bill is passed. And now John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, has said we're looking at July 4th. So this is going to go on at least until the summer. But once that bill passes, you think that's when the hammer is going to fall, and we're going to start to get real information from the Epstein files being released to the public. Please, Paul, pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, again, not to beat a dead horse about this big, beautiful bill, that is the key to the success of Trump's 4 years. The Epstein tapes will be key to MAGA lasting 8 more years after that. So that's why they're not releasing it. And as far as, why would Pam Bondi set herself up to be called a liar along with Trump when if they're already destroyed? They wouldn't do that. But if they were, there's one last wild card, and that is Giselle Maxwell. Her head hasn't been shredded. It's all in her head, and I know you're saying she doesn't want to talk, but believe me, they'll make her an offer she can't refuse if that were the case. Hopefully, though, they've got her under 24-hour U.S. Marshal Guard or isolated from, so nothing can happen to her. But I'm confident that it's all because of the big, beautiful bill. And it's all going to play out, Jeff. Once the bill lands, the tariffs will be handled. Now we can, implode the deep state. But we can't do it right now.
What do you say to Comer's argument? And I think this is why his comments have just taken off. They've skyrocketed. I mean, they're everywhere. Where he says, look, I've dealt with the deep state. I've investigated the deep state. I've been battling these guys for years and years. I know many of the players. They are going to destroy evidence. It's not a question of Pam Bondi. It's not a question of Trump. It's a question that this stuff was already being shredded and destroyed. The night Trump won, this stuff was already being shredded and destroyed. And that's why he says, I told Miller and I told Kash Patel and I told everybody, get down there yourself if you have to and physically grab that evidence now. Don't wait now, because they're not going to leave that kind of evidence in a file for you to be able to use against them and against powerful people within their within the apparatus and within the government. In other words, it's not a question of Pam Bondi being truthful or not. It's that much of those files, the key parts of it, have already been destroyed. What say you?
Repeat what I said. They need to get past the big bill. And if, in fact, they have been destroyed, then they're working on Giselle Maxwell. I mean, that's their ace in the hole. No, everyone will talk. Everyone has a price. I mean, she's lived a luxurious life. Why wouldn't she, in exchange for her freedom and witness protection and a nice, comfortable life, give up everyone, So I think if that's the case, that might be why it's taken so long. They're working on her. But they can't get everything and launch it now because it'll blow up the big, beautiful bill. Because when this thing hits, it's going to rock the boat, especially John Roberts and the Supreme Court.
Oh, I got to say, Paul, I think you can tell they really are afraid of what's in those files. You can sense it. You can really sense it. You can sense it on the Supreme Court. You can sense it in the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, the entire bureaucracy, Hollywood. I mean, you can really tell whatever he's got on him, he's got him good. And I think those files are going to be, you're right, absolutely explosive. All right. Thank you very much, Paul, as always, for that call. 617-266-6868. I want to read a very, very important text because it explains a lot of the backstory. And so this is from 603. Jeff, here's what I know so far. A good majority of the Epstein files were being housed at the New York FBI field office. This is all true. When Pam Bondi ordered them to be released, the lead agent in charge of that office refused to do so. So Pam Bondi and Kash Patel sent federal agents to that New York field office and raided it. The lead agent was fired, and tens of thousands of pieces of evidence were seized. Separately, well-known whistleblower and former FBI agent Garrett O'Boyle has personally confirmed through his well-established contacts within the FBI that the evidence seized during that New York FBI office raid has been disseminated to all the FBI field offices around the country for agents to pour through due to the high volume of evidence, and that this is happening right now. It's essentially all hands on deck. So, in other words, they are combing through it. They are looking at it. That key FBI agents and lead agents didn't want that information to get out. Patel and Bondi sent in their people to get all that evidence out, and that it has been disseminated, and they're working around the clock furiously to redact everything so it can all be released. I'll be honest. Again, I don't want to keep, I don't want to sound like a tape. I don't need every child porn video. I don't need every incident of Epstein with an underage girl, or Prince Andrew with an underage girl. I don't think the public, wants to see that or cares to see that. I mean, sure, we want justice for the victims, but it's the names. It's just the names. It's the client list. Who was being blackmailed by Epstein? That's what we want to know. We don't need every video. We don't need we don't need all of these images. And frankly, that can be released over time. If you need it, fine. Do it every week, every 2 weeks, whatever. But what we want, and this is why I'm very suspicious, who was on Epstein Island and who was he blackmailing? Give us the names. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Jack in Indiana. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Love you in a non-sexual way. I want to know, why do you care? Nothing's going to happen. Whoever is on that list, nothing's going to happen to them. Just like Ilhan or whatever her name is. She's not going to get tossed from Congress.
Well, Jack, I'll be honest. I think this is one scandal they can't avoid. I think, no, this is the nuclear bomb of scandals. Look, let's Bill Clinton there. Just let's use a name that we know has been to Epstein Island multiple times and flew on the so-called Lolita Express. You got a video of him? I'm just saying, say this gets released, okay? I'm saying hypothetically. You have a video of him having sex with a 12, 13-year-old girl. How does he recover? I mean, let's just say no charges are even pressed. And I'm telling you, they're going to be charges. Bubba's going to go to jail. Because now that's statutory rape. Okay, now you're talking about molesting. That's a child. You're molesting a child. But that image, that photo, that video gets released, he's finished. He's finished. His reputation is finished. The question now is, was Hillary Clinton at Epstein Island? That's because Kuhner just threw her name in there. So, and that's a slip up. That's almost like he knows. Kuhner knows some of the names that are in that file, that are in those files. So he's almost like, they're not protecting Bill Clinton. They're not protecting Hillary Clinton. They're not protecting Bill Gates. He goes, they're protecting themselves. So he's throwing names. No, they're not going to recover. You don't diddle kids. I know things are bad, but they're not that bad. And they know that. They desperately know that. And that's why they want to do everything. That's why I'm telling you, I don't believe Epstein committed suicide. There's no doubt in my mind. He was killed. He had to be killed. And if Ghislaine Maxwell knows what's good for her, she better, and no, notice she hasn't said a word. Maxwell to this day has not said a single word. She hasn't named a single perpetrator. Well, not one person on that client list. Because she knows she opens her mouth, she's dead. So, no, Jack, you have pictures, videotapes, images of very powerful people having intimate, intercourse. Okay, it's a family show, so I got to be careful. With, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls, you're finished. I don't care, you're finished. And the pressure is going to be, the pressure is going to be inexorable that there's going to be massive prosecutions. Massive prosecutions. Now, I don't know. Does Pam Bondi not want to do this? Is this too much for her? Is she overwhelmed at the prospect of this? Does she fear for her own life? Has she been threatened? I don't know. I'm just asking. When this is a nuclear bomb that you're sitting on, you go nuclear. Once you go nuclear, you can't control the ramifications. And so that's why this is the most eagerly anticipated release of any files, more even than the JFK files, much more. Because this is not 50 years ago. This is today or recently. And this involves Democrats, Republicans, foreign leaders, Hollywood, some of the top people in the deep state, CIA directors, FBI directors. It goes on and on and on. No, Jack, they cannot allow to be released. Look, I'll give you my brutally honest answer. I think a lot of the files have already been destroyed. I'm with Kuhner on this. I'm with him all the way. Maybe not all, but I think the most damaging, incriminating pieces of evidence and videos, that's gone. That's long gone. Because they know you keep that, you hang them all. Jack, thank you very much for that call. 617. Just my opinion. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. 617-266-6868. Bob in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Bob?
Good. So I believe that Comer and Jordan are the captain and co-captain of the Washington Generals. They are the token resistance for the deep state, and I believe they are part of the deep state. All they do is investigate and talk and investigate. And I think Comer's been set out there to put the thought in all of us that, oh, yeah, the files have been destroyed. And they probably have been destroyed. I don't think they'll ever see the light of day. These guys are all in it together. And, just as the Biden investigation, as we saw, they kept coming up with all this evidence and, all this investigation. And I think several times, on your show, you'd be like, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. And nothing happens. it just goes on and on and on and on, and no one will be arrested from this. Not one soul will be arrested. And that lady, Max, will probably end up dead eventually, and then that's it. They'll just wash their hands of it and walk away. I mean, it is a deep state, and they're going to protect their own, and no one's going to jail. Nothing's going to happen of this. It's going to either be white, either go away, just keep, they'll release token little crap, the Prince Andrew stuff and all this stuff, but that's already been released. But these guys are part of the deep state, Jordan and Kuhner.
Well, let me ask you this, Bob. Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman from Florida. She's a very staunch, very principled MAGA Republican, big Trump supporter. She chairs a task force set up underneath Comer, kind of like a subcommittee under Comer. And the task force is about the declassification of federal secrets. In other words, stuff that the deep state is hiding, that she wants to be released to the public. That's the task force, and she's heading that task force. She has now gone public, not once, not twice. I believe it's at least 3, if not 4 times. But she's gone public now multiple times, where she has directly accused Pam Bondi of deliberately delaying the release of the Epstein files. She says, I don't believe her excuses anymore. I don't believe it's taking this long. And again, she made my point where, she's playing, stop playing dumb. We don't care to know the names or the identities of every 13, 14, 12-year-old young girl that was raped or molested or sexually exploited. We don't need to know all of the name, protect all of that. That's fine. We don't need to see that. You know what we want. Give us the names. Release the client list. Why are you protecting them? She is now convinced that Pam Bondi, for whatever reason, doesn't want to release those names. She has said this publicly. My question to you, Bob, I hear what you're saying about Comer and Jordan. I hear you. They're out now to put this idea. It's been destroyed. Everything is gone. And basically now to tell people, get your expectations down because you're not going to see anything. Is Pam Bondi lying when she says, I have them? They're on my desk. The FBI is going through them. Is she making that up? Or is she telling the truth? And, we'll get to them when we get to them. In other words, is Pam Bondi for real? Do you believe her when she says, I'm in possession of these files and you will get these files? What say you?
I say no, just based on, what you just said about they dispersed all these documents throughout the country, which is another disaster. They should be under lock and key in one location in her office if she's legit.
It's funny you should say that. I thought the exact same thing. When I heard them, that story broke a while back, and I'm like, okay, so they sent in the agents. I thought they're going to bring them straight either to Kash Patel, right, the FBI director, or to Pam Bondi. And it's going to be in one room, as you put it, sealed under lock and key. Then I read, no, they're going to go to field offices all over the country. Because apparently there was such a high volume of these videos and documents and tapes. And so they're like, there's just so much, so we're just going to, parcel it out. So we'll send some to Atlanta, we'll send some to Boston, we'll send some to Chicago, we'll send some to the Los Angeles office. I'm like, why would you potentially risk losing, track of such explosive documents? Like, why would you do that? And then you're opening up the possibility that, FBI agents, if they wanted to destroy evidence on behalf, because many of them are partisan hacks. We saw what the FBI became under Joe Biden. You don't want, you don't want that many these documents going through that many hands. You want them going through a few numbers of hands, the fewer the better, that you can trust. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, two very quick points that Mark on Messenger is making, and I think he's on fire. Jeff, if Pam Bondi says she has the list, then how could it have been destroyed? Something smells here, Jeff. We don't want pictures or the names of victims. All we want is the client list. You're completely right. There is no reason why Pam Bondi can't give us that at least. So either she has it or she doesn't. And she's stalling and lying. It's time for her to come clean, release the client list, or tell us she doesn't have it. Because it would be a game changer, Jeff. But more importantly, and I think this Mark is 1,000% correct on, the media won't be able to cover it up. And they will have no choice but to report it. Bingo. Bingo. When you're dealing now with this level of a scandal involving this many powerful people from all walks of life in America and around the world, there's no way in hell the media could sweep this under the rug. They can't ignore it. They can't downplay it. They can't poo-poo it. They'd have no choice but to cover it. That's what I mean. It's the equivalent of a political nuclear bomb. I mean, so the question is really, someone needs to ask Pam Bondi. This is the question. If I had a chance to interview her and say, okay, you only got one question. Is there a client list and will you release it? That's it. Do you have the client list and will you release it? Again, forget the videos, the images, the victims, that's fine. Okay, we don't need to see that. Just the names. Give me the names. Do you have the names? And if you do, why aren't you releasing the names? Mark goes on, and again, hits the nail right on the head. Jeff, please, I don't care who's on that list. Republicans, Democrats, foreign leaders, celebrities, even judges and Supreme Court justices. By the way, let me just stop there. I think they're all on the list. What you just, Republicans, check. Democrats, check. Foreign leaders, check. Celebrities, check. And as you put it, even judges and justices, check. By the way, I wouldn't be shocked if some of these judges that are ruling against Trump again and again, I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Epstein Island. In fact, I'm almost sure, I'll bet you the best freaking steak, that some of these people were on the Lolita Express. I guarantee it. But let that go. It needs to be released so we know who the true scumbags are and who are not. So this world can be somewhat cleansed of all the evil and sick bastards out there. And this is all in caps. We the people have the right to know. Mark, honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. This is about we have the right to know. We have the right to know. And we're talking about, these are pedophiles. These are child molesters. And you guys went down there to party? And you allowed yourselves to get blackmailed? I think we have the right to know. And for how long were you being blackmailed? And on what were you being blackmailed? And what kind of sick, evil people do we have in our government, in our society, in our culture, running countries all over the world? We have a right to know. And I agree. You can never get rid of evil. But let's cleanse a little bit of it, for God's sake. So we want to protect them so they stay in power? Is that what we want? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Heather in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
So I am on the fence. I agree with I don't know if he was the first caller, but I think that if they are still, the files are still there, I think that they're waiting for the big bill. And the question, well, I have another question I have a question first. My question is, if the deep state's so corrupt and the FBI is corrupt, why did they go with Epstein in the first place? And then my other comment is, the reason why I think that the files possibly could be intact, I guess you could say, is because, I mean, it's kind of silly, but Trump always compliments Pam Bondi. Whenever he has like the cabinet meetings or she's there, he always says what a good job she's doing. And if she wasn't like doing a good job, why would he say that? I don't think he would say that. Do you know what I mean?
No, I hear you, Heather. Look, again, take it for what it's worth. I could be wrong. I'm just giving you my 2 cents worth. It always seems to me that when Trump compliments Pam Bondi, I find it a bit odd. It's almost like he's trying to boost her confidence. That's the way I look at it. The way he compliments her. It's like, you can do this, Pam. Hey, come on. You're doing a good job. Come on. Hey. Okay, so that's the sense I get. Now, Comer's argument, and this is why I think there's a lot to it. His argument is, no, they had the files. Of course they had the files. His argument is, I'm telling you, our government was using those files to blackmail people. Blackmail people here in America, blackmail politicians in America, but to blackmail foreign leaders. In fact, I don't want to say the person's name. There is an Israeli, it's not Bibi Netanyahu, but there is an Israeli prime minister whose name is constantly being thrown out there as being on the list. So what I'm saying is, so they were using this to blackmail people, to get them to do what they wanted them to do for fear of being exposed. Comer is saying once Trump won, that's when they began to destroy the documents. You know, in other words, his argument is, you see, now they're like, oh my God, he won? He actually did it? No. You know, shred him, get rid of him. And Comer's fear is, that's when the dirty FBI got involved. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. House Oversight Chairman James Comer, in really one of the most, frankly, explosive interviews I've ever heard. It was about 5 minutes long, and man, he didn't hold back. Comer now says he believes the Epstein files are gone, that they have been destroyed, or at least some of the most devastating documents, the most incriminating documents, have been shredded and destroyed. Do you agree with Comer? Do you think he's right? Do you think the deep state, especially after Trump's election victory in November last year, said, you know what? This has got too much evidence that incriminates all of us. We are going to destroy this and protect ourselves from ever going to jail. In other words, is Comer right? Do you think that we're never going to see the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth regarding these Epstein files? 617-266-6868 is the number. And Pam Bondi, she says it's not true. She directly contradicted Comer, saying they've got the files. According to her, the way she made it seem, all the files. And the delay is because she's redacting images, videos, pictures of the innocent victims, the underage girls in particular, of the sexual predators who went to Epstein Island. 617-266-6868 6868. Lines are blazing. Harry in Chelmsford. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Harry?
Oh, I'm great. Hey, sorry to hear about your dad. I lost my dad.
Thank you very much, Harry. I think about him
quick.
almost every day. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, me too. On the Pam Bondi thing, she knows what's going on. She's got to pull her head out of her butt, start walking her truth, and take care of this. She knows what to do. She's got all the information. If she's stonewalling it, she's the liar along with the rest of them. But I'm going to say this. I don't care where the list is. All right. I really hope it comes out, but I'm kind of siding with you. I feel I got a feeling in my gut that they're gone, but you know what? I want people to listen to this. And this don't go with everybody that's on the list. This all goes for the whole people in the listening area that have anything to do with this in their life. Anybody that touches and harms a little child like that, it's written in the book, in the good book. It says that it's better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown into the depths of the ocean than to lead one of these little ones astray. And no matter what list is thrown away, guess what? You can't throw it away from our Lord's list. In the end of your day, you're going to face it anyway. So, there you go. Turn
Harry,
around.
very well said. Very, very well said. Honestly, I don't think I can think of anything more evil, more unspeakable than what they did to those kids on that island. And, even, Bondi was saying there's so many videos of Epstein with children, Epstein watching child pornography. I mean, Harry, look, let me just give you an example, okay? This is just what we know, public information. There is a video. I don't know who took the video, who was taping him, but for whatever reason he was taped. It was Bill Clinton, not on Epstein Island, but it was Bill Clinton at one of these airports. I believe it was in Florida, but don't quote me on this. And he was getting ready to get onto Epstein's plane to go to, his island. And she may have been 18. Let me say 18. She looked younger than 18. Okay, I don't think she was 18. To me, she looked underage. But if she was of age, she was barely of age. Okay, barely 18. And as he's getting ready to board, he's sitting at the airport, and they're waiting to, I guess, whatever, tank up the flight, tank up the plane and get it all ready. So he's sitting down, and she's literally giving him a massage. I mean, it's caught on tape. And she's massaging him, and he's like, oh, that feels so good. Oh, can you do this spot, and can you do that spot? And first of all, and this is way past his presidency, he's, what is he, in his 60s, if not his 70s. And honestly, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, this girl is old enough to be, forget your granddaughter, your great-granddaughter. You're the former president of the United States, for God's sake. And you're getting a back rub? A massage? From an 18-year-old girl? And it was sexual? It was inappropriate? Frankly, it was obscene. Now, it turned my stomach, and I mean, he was dressed, he had a suit on, she was obviously dressed. But what I'm saying is, and that's before they even got to the freaking island. They're just at the airport, waiting to board the plane to get to the island. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh my God. I go, listen, man, this guy is diabolical. I mean, he's truly demonic. He's sick. So, no, I think there are, I'll bet you anything. There's images of him on tape with underage girls doing some of the most disgusting sexual acts imaginable. And it's obvious. Now, when this gets out, I hope to God it gets out, he'll never recover. The Clintons will never recover. It'll rock the Democratic Party. It'll rock the media. It'll rock everybody anybody and everybody that ever supported the Clintons. So just to give you a small taste, this is what they're afraid of. And that's why I'm convinced that Comer accidentally let the cat out of the bag. He was talking and he heard stuff and he wasn't supposed to say anything. And it's like, well, I told him, get him. Get these documents now because they're going to shred them. They're gone. They probably destroyed them. In other words, like, it's obvious. They're not going to keep this kind of information lying around for people like Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Donald Trump to have it, because this is Trump we're talking about. He will destroy them with it. And that's why I think they're in the shredder. They're gone. They are so gone. Final word to you, Harry.
I think they've been dreaded myself too, because they're getting more emboldened every day against Trump. Like they got something over him now. They can't, or he can't. He don't have that over them now. I don't know. I just know that they're going to all answer to it at the end of their days. That's a guarantee. I hope you're all listening. I hope you hear this, and I hope it moves you to do something about your actions. I don't want this in my country.
Amen. Amen. Harry, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, and I think it explains a lot. 350,000 children were trafficked into the United States under the Biden regime. Opening up that border, yes, it destroyed our country, no question. Flooded our country with criminals, rapists, gangbangers, terrorists, drug traffickers, you name it. But it was a bonanza for pedophiles. It was a bonanza. It was a bonanza. They have lost track of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of children. They're gone. Many of them are being held as prostitutes or sex slaves by the wealthiest in our country, in Hollywood, in Washington, in New York, in places all over. I don't think that was an accident. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you, what do you think has happened to the Epstein files? And will we ever get to see them? Or will we ever get to see the most incriminating and explosive of these files? I'm getting a ton of text messages. Many of you believe that the most damaging, incriminating files have most likely been destroyed. So we may get some, but we're not going to get the most damaging and the most important of the files. I wouldn't say it's unanimous, but it's a very strong majority among many of you. So I'm just curious, do you think Comer is right? You think when Congressman Comer, House Oversight Chairman, said, they've been destroyed, they've been shredded. You waited too long, guys. You gave them too much time, and they're not going to be holding files that is going to send every single one of them and their bosses to jail. Then you don't know the deep state. And let me throw this very quick log on the fire. Comer went out of his way to say they're not doing it to protect the Clintons. It's not a question of personal loyalty or the Bidens or Bill Gates or others. They're doing it because our government was using Epstein and using these files to literally blackmail, to control, to bend, to manipulate, to have dirt on people so that they can control them, and that they were doing this to blackmail people. And that's how the government, our government, works. Basically, it's a form of extortion and blackmail, almost like the mob. And he said that's why those files were destroyed. And so a lot of people now are saying maybe even he was a Fed. that Epstein ultimately was working for the FBI. Not that he was, he wasn't clean, he was dirty, but that eventually the reason why he survived for so long was because he kept giving him all of this damaging, incriminating evidence against very powerful people that they were able to use. And then when he was no longer useful to them, then they arrested him, and then the deep state basically assassinated him and made it look like a suicide. Now, just so that you know, there is the P. Diddy list as well, and that trial has begun. And that also is going to implicate, this is, I think, more of a Hollywood scandal, it appears, but apparently the Obamas have been rumored, especially the dear leader, to have been part of these so-called freak-offs that Diddy held with, again, women and very young women and underage women. But that's the rumor as well, that Diddy had been penetrated by the feds. And he survived as long as he did because he was doing the FBI's bidding. That they were using this, as the Russians call it, kompromat. Compromising people so you can blackmail and control them. So, my question to you, very simply, do you believe Comer either deliberately or inadvertently did he tell the truth? Have the files been destroyed? 617-266-6868. Vince in Deutschland, in Germany. Thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
Top of the morning to you, Jeff.
Hi, Vince.
Hey, I equate this whole thing with professional wrestling, just like I equate it with the Q posts. Remember the Q posts? Trust the plan. It's all in the works, and what happened with that, right? And it's all signal, not noise. And you look at last week, Tom Fitton went on Bannon, and he said that he was suing the federal government for release of this stuff. He's suing Trump's federal government. But James O'Keefe went into hiding for a couple of weeks because he says he's got two explosive stories that puts him in fear for his life. And he told that to Alex Jones just the other day. And what dropped this morning? The thing with Prince Andrew, right? The hidden tape with Prince Andrew's one of his closest friends saying that, yeah, he was with underage girls. He was with girls that are really young on Epstein Island, and he lied to all of us, all right? And it goes back to Pam Bondi. What was her job before she was AG? She was the Florida AG, and I believe she was the AG when that sweetheart deal was made with Epstein, where he got to, go to the county jail. You get to leave during the day and just go back and sleep there at night. All the while he's running free doing whatever he does, and I have to say it, man, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, their credibility is shot, all right? Cash with his Government Gangsters book, Dan Bongino, no more podcasts to go back to for Dan Bongino after this, until they produce. Their reputation is going to go straight into the toilet with the conservative base. It's going to be gone. And I'm telling you what's going to happen. The midterms are going to come. Trump can sit there and say, oh, it's the economy. If I do well with the economy, people will show up. No one's going to show up. People want arrests. People want accountability. People want an end to the two-tier justice system. And if that doesn't happen, people are not going to show up for the midterms. And when they don't show up for the midterms and they lose the House, then they can say, oh, well, we had the list, but now we lost the list. And now it's all gone. Man, and that's where I go back to professional wrestling. We are watching professional wrestling. It's all a scam.
Vince, I got to ask you, so far, has any swamp creature, any swamp Democrat been arrested? I mean, I understand they did a big fentanyl seizure, which was great. Please don't get me wrong. Child pornography. There was a huge arrest of a big child porn network, which is wonderful. I don't want to downplay it. That's very important. But, that's great. And Pam Bondi will go out there, and she was on Fox again yesterday. And she'll talk about these fentanyl seizures and these child porn networks that they're disrupting and breaking up. But tell me, Vince, has any prominent swamp creature, pick one, just one, have they been charged? Have they been indicted? Has anyone even been arrested? Am I missing something here, Vince?
That it's signal, not noise, right? This is all noise, man. Pam Bondi is in central casting for her gig on Fox News. That's where she's going to go next, all right? This is a joke. It is an absolute joke. I'm done holding my breath thinking there's going to be accountability, because if they did release the Epstein files, it would bring down the entire government. Who cares about the big, beautiful bill, man? It doesn't matter, because if they brought down the government, they could pass the big, beautiful bill with a handful of people. I mean, what is it, 535 people in the Congress? It doesn't matter if it's 235 people in the Congress. A majority is a majority. Even if a third, two-thirds of them get removed for this stuff, it does not matter. It's professional wrestling. And we're getting played as suckers. And people should just, they should decide, do I want to be a sucker or do I want to continue to tune in every day?
I'm with you. Vince, I'm with you all the way, buddy. Thank you very much for that call, and very powerfully said. No, look, and to me, it's even a deeper philosophical issue. I don't want to be run by pedophiles. Look, I'm not saying every politician's a pedophile. Of course not. But, look, that list apparently was an extensive list. So I think we deserve to know. How many powerful politicians were there with underage girls? How many foreign leaders were there with underage girls? How many Hollywood celebrities were there with underage girls and boys? Why? I don't want these kind of people making movies. I don't want these kind of people making decisions over my life, your life, our lives. I'm sorry, I don't. This is beyond evil. So I just think to me, if you want to have any kind of a decent country, you've got to purge your country. Look, we're not talking about they're taking a few bucks here and a few bucks there and, corrupt politicians. We're talking about doing kids, man. You're talking about the most disgusting evil that you could possibly perpetrate. Now, and I want to know if the Supreme Court is compromised. That's the elephant in the room. So I want to know, are the leaders of corporate America involved? Is Roberts involved? Is anyone else? Are judges involved? Is this why many of them are ruling so ridiculously against Trump? I think we have a right to know. Are powerful Republicans involved? Are powerful Democrats involved? Are there family members involved? Are other foreign presidents and prime ministers involved? And is this the MO, modus operandi? Is this how our government works? We blackmail people like this? So what, we're going to lecture the Russians? We're going to lecture the Chinese? I mean, this is the stuff of Caligula. This is the stuff of the late Roman Empire. So, no, I'm sorry. I don't care who it brings down. I don't. I want the truth. We deserve the truth. We demand the truth. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Holly on the South Shore. Thanks for holding, Holly, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Holly?
Good. It's been a while, but thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Honestly, I think that Comer's telling the truth. I think that the files have all been destroyed. And I honestly think it is so far, wide, and deep that if people actually found out who was actually on the list, it would send them right over the edge. But, Jeff, I'm telling you right now, I think we all deserve the truth. I don't care what kind of truth it brings out. I think people deserve to know what's going on. We've been supporting Hollywood for many years now. We got to stop doing that. Stop watching their movies. Because you know what? They're running amok everywhere, all over the world, doing whatever the hell they please. And guess what? There's no accountability for these people. I'm tired of it. You get people who commit petty crimes, and they go to jail for 20-plus years. I'm getting tired of it. These people get to do whatever they want, and there's no accountability. Nobody's children are safe. These aren't just children from all over the world. These are our children, too. No children deserve this kind of treatment. And I honestly believe Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. It sounds crazy, but I think there's a reason why all the cameras and the lights went down. He's living under a different identity, and they're hiding him somewhere.
Well, Holly, that's the one part where I disagree with you. I think he's dead. No, I just don't think he offed himself. I don't think he killed himself. I think there's no way he killed himself. No, they killed him. There's no question in my mind they killed him. And the moment he said he was going to start to name names, that's when he opened his big fat mouth. It was in prison, and his trial was a couple weeks away. And he says, you know what? I'm going to spill the beans. No, I'm going to name names. The moment he said, I'm naming names, that's when he was hanging from the ceiling with bed sheets. Then I'm like, no. And then, of course, the guard fell asleep. So the guard wasn't there to see what happened. And guess what? The cameras, Shazam, what a coincidence, huh, Holly? The cameras, they just didn't work on that cell. They work in other cells, but they just didn't work for that cell. Can you believe it? Can you just believe it? So we don't have any video of him hanging himself. We don't have a guard who can say, no, he hung himself or I tried to get him down. It just, my God, the coincidence. It's just incredible. Holly, I want to go back to something that you said, where you said, they get away with everything. Murder, rape, molesting children, you name it. And you're sick and tired of it. Let the chips fall where they may. How high do you think this goes? How far do you think this goes? Already now, Prince Andrew's we knew this, but now we're talking the British royal family. Clearly now he was involved, no question. So this goes as high as the British royal family. Do you think it goes all the way up? Are we talking Joe Biden? Are we talking Barack Obama? Are we talking Chief Justice John Roberts? Are we talking the Clintons? How high does this go in your view, Holly?
Up. I think all the names that you just mentioned, I think it goes all the way down to people in our community. I think some of the law enforcement's involved. I think people in politics are involved. It just makes me sick. We don't even know who's who anymore. You turn around and you want to trust the schools with your children, and you can't trust people there anymore. You can't trust the daycares. You can't trust coaches anymore. It makes me sick. You have to watch your kid at every angle of every single move. And it's sick. It was, even back when I was growing up, we had no idea what was going on. Now we know because it's all coming out. But you know what? I have a question for Pam Bondi. Where the hell are you? When are arrests going to start being made? And why are you making excuses as to where all the files are? And, as far as Diddy is concerned, I think they destroyed all those files and all the fires, too. What do you think, Jeff?
Could be. Could be, Holly. There's even that one. It's raising a lot of eyebrows. A lot of eyebrows. Holly, thank you, as always, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. No, look, we're talking Bill Gates. His name is widely discussed to be on that list. That's one of the most powerful globalists on the planet. You're talking about one of the key sugar daddies of the Democratic Party. So we're talking, this goes beyond, we're talking World Economic Forum. Who knows how far this goes? And again, I just go back to this because of this insatiable appetite for kids. It boggles the mind. Look, again, when you talk, when I've got a full board of callers, I want to get as many people on. So you try to get, you try to say what you want to say as quickly, as simply, as directly as possible, with all the necessary qualifications and nuances. So I don't want people to misunderstand me. No, you shouldn't be sleeping with hookers. No, you shouldn't be snorting lines of cocaine. No, like these rock stars. No, you shouldn't be, partying and drinking yourself to Palookaville. But what I'm saying is, okay, when I watch, I don't know, Behind the Music or Breaking the Band, these crazy rockers. Okay, it's biblical. You get, it's sin. It's sin. You go, okay, the women, the drugs, the booze, the fame. And then, of course, that's how the band falls apart, right? But you almost chuckle and laugh. You go, it's like it's the same story all the time. But children? 15-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 13-year-old girls, that's what gets you off? And you're willing to potentially go to jail for the rest of your life? To be utterly discredited? To be completely ostracized? And to open yourself up to the kind of blackmail that someone will own you forever? I always thought, again, maybe it's me, maybe it's my upbringing, maybe it's the way my mind works. I always thought, pedophiles, child molesters, they're like, one in a million. It's like, yeah, they're out there, but, they're freaks. They're abnormal. They're the exception. You look at this, and it's like almost like to be part of the so-called elite of our society, you have to do kids. It's the sheer number, how pervasive and rampant it is. That's what I find shocking. 617-266-6868. Okay, agree, disagree. Richard in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Richard, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Richard.
I just want to put in a plug, first of all, for the Pam Bondi in-action figure from Mattel. I think that this whole thing is, by the way, there's the Cash Patel in-action figure, too, by the way. But I want to put in just add, this thing is huge. And, Greece allows, the country of Greece allows for pedophilia as a sexual preference. And this is the reason why Tom Hanks and his wife both are dual citizens of the United States and Greece. I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not know that. I did not know on both counts. Really? Are you sure about that? Greece allows? I promise, Richard, I'll give you all the time in the world. Why did we lose Richard? What happened? Oh, Richard, please call back. I want you to call back. For whatever reason, we lost you. It wasn't on our end. So something happened on your end. That's what they want here. That's their ultimate goal. There's no question that's their ultimate goal. They want to mainstream, normalize, and legalize pedophilia. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. And I think part of the reason is because so many of our so-called ruling elites engage in this all the time. So they want to normalize. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470, 70470. Okay, this is from Kyle on Messenger. And he makes a really, really good point. Jeff, the fact that no high-profile people suspected on the Epstein list are silent says everything. If my name was rumored to be on that list, I'd be screaming from the highest rooftop. Release the files. Let me ask all of you. If your name was being bandied about in the media, on social media, wherever, that you're on this notorious, infamous Epstein list. I don't know about you. I'm telling you, I'm suing you, and I'm suing you, and I'm suing you. I mean, this is defamation. This is a lie. These are smears. There's going to be hell to pay. My lawyer is calling your lawyer. Get ready because you're going to lose your shirt. Instead, you get all of these names that keep being, they're mentioned all the time. They don't say a peep. They don't even deny it. The Clintons, they haven't denied it. Bill Gates, he hasn't denied it. You can run down the whole list. They don't come out and say, no, they don't say anything. They act like, they're not aware of the story. They never heard of it. To me, their silence is deafening. One more, and then I want to go right back to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jeff, John Roberts, Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice John Roberts, is still acting very confidently, as if he knows he's still under the control and protection of the deep state. That's a very interesting point. It's true. He doesn't look like someone who's worried, who's looking over his shoulder. Oh, they have the files. Ooh, they may be closing in on me. Ooh, could I be in trouble? He's cool as a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. His name is always mentioned almost at the top of the list. And it's like everything's fine. It's almost like, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's almost like the files have been destroyed. Like Kuhner said. It's almost like, whew, boy, dodged a bullet there. I thought those videos were going to bury me, but hey, I'm in the clear now. I think Kuhner spilled the beans. Maybe he meant to, maybe he didn't mean to. I don't know. I can't read his mind. But I'm with him all the way. I think if they haven't all been destroyed, the most damaging, incriminating files are gone. Right in that shredder. 617-266-6868. Let me just, for those of you joining us now, Kuhner on a podcast dropped this bombshell that he believes that the Epstein files have been destroyed, that Pam Bondi no longer has them, that the DOJ no longer has them, and that he warned the moment Trump won and they were starting to get in the transition, he told Stephen Miller, he told Kash Patel, he told people within Trump's inner circle, get those documents now, because if you don't, I know the deep state, I investigate the deep state, I hold hearings on the deep state all the time. If you don't get them now, they're going to destroy them. Roll cut 18, a mic.
The Epstein files, obviously, that's like finding a unicorn in Washington, D.C. You have come on and talked about that on this program, just for the sake of transparency, which is very big for you. And so, in closing, any motion on that, any movement on that? We hear that there's a timeline now.
I hope James has the Epstein files, because I don't think the Department of Justice has them, or at least the Attorney General does not have them, or she would have turned them over. The President ordered them released. The Attorney General ordered them released. We all know they have not been released. And one of my biggest fears that I had, and I expressed this with Kash Patel and a lot of people, Stephen Miller, and a lot of people going into the new administration. I'm like, I hope they're not shredding documents right now. This was a few weeks before the transition. I said, I hope they're not shredding documents.
Yeah. Oh, they're shredding. I think you're right. They're shredding. Pam Bondi, right? I mean, obviously this made massive news. Of course it would make massive news. So, with these explosive allegations, Pam Bondi was asked point blank, do you have the files? And what's taking so long? Why the delay after delay after delay? How long does it take? Listen to her response. Roll cut 17. Mike.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm that? We still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
So she's going to give Comer a call. Okay. So she says we've got him, and they're going to come out. So who do you believe, Comer or Bondi? We've got Richard in New Hampshire back. I'm so happy we got you back, Richard. Richard, so you mentioned how Greece now has basically legalized man-boy sexual relations, or they've decriminalized it, considering it now a sexual preference. And you mentioned Tom Hanks and his wife, and that's that they go to Greece often, that they're citizens of Greece, and that's pretty much one of the reasons why they spend a lot of time in Greece. 30 seconds already, Mike? Are you serious? Mike, I don't know, man. I don't know, Mike. I'm starting to wonder if you're deep state, too. I'm just saying, Mike. Okay, let's go to Richard in New Hampshire. Richard, please pick up where you left off.
I wanted to just say that this whole business of Tom Hanks and his wife is an assumption, okay? But it is a very, it's a good conclusion why they were at Epstein Island and so forth. What I want to remind your listeners is to keep an eye on Sean Puffy Coombs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever he's calling himself these days. He's on trial right now. And the information that's going to be coming out, that is coming out in that trial, is going to be key to people understanding the breadth and depravity of these people, that they are just, it's like you said, it is the end of the Roman Empire, the Caligula era. Actually, Titus was pretty perverse. A lot of them were. And this is what we're witnessing right now. It's so huge. I think that there are people on the Supreme Court like John Roberts. I think that they have things on his family, which is the reason why he betrayed us with the Obamacare ruling back during that time. And it is so diverse and so widespread. And I think that Pam Bondi is not doing a good job. I think they should just release this. We are all adults. We can all see this material. It's just ridiculous. That's what I have to say.
Richard, what do you say to the argument that in the end, this is much ado about nothing? Why? Because even if the files are released, okay, just for the sake of argument, nothing ever happens anyway. Republicans never prosecute Democrats. Democrats never go to jail. They're never held accountable. So nothing is going to happen. That, again, this is just another distraction. What do you say to that argument?
I say nihilistic thinking is nihilistic thinking. And if you pertain your tenor of thought to that type of nihilism, you're going to be living in a world of banality, period. You have to face the facts of what's going on. And some people can, and some people cannot. That's a fact of life. It's been going on for years. But the situation at hand is this has to be handled, and it has to be handled. There has to be people not just going to jail. There has to be a more severe punishment for some of these people, like this Fauci guy who killed millions and millions of people. These people are diabolical. They're the worst of us. They need to go. That's what I said. That's
drop the mic. Richard, drop the mic. Amen. No, and again, I don't want to repeat myself, but, it does bear repeating. Look, it's one thing to think it, it's another thing to see it. And if you're going to see some of the most powerful people in the world, political leaders, corporate leaders, business leaders, celebrities, Hollywood stars, justices at the Supreme Court, judges, and they're with a 12-year-old girl, no. That, you can't unwatch that. And I think this is the scandal that will bring the entire system, the entire establishment crashing down. There's no question. And, to me, that's why I kept saying over and over again, the Epstein files, that's the ball game. That's the ball game. And I just can't believe just how they're slow walking this. Yeah, again, we just want the names, the clients. So this idea about the images and the videos and the identities of the victims, and that's okay. We don't need to know the names of the victims. If they want to stay anonymous, that's okay. But don't tell me, look, she's not a stupid woman. You look at those videos, oh my God, is that, is that Bill Clinton? Oh my God. I mean, that's what we need. We just need the names. And the names is the one thing they're not giving. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. And let me throw this log on the fire. Look, Bill Gates' name has been thrown out there. Tom Hanks' name has been thrown out there. Roberts, obviously, has been widely talked about. You've got Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. Their names have been thrown out there. Is there anybody that you are convinced where you say, Jeff, outside of these names, where you say, Jeff, I'm telling you, that person is going to end up on the list. That person is on that list. In other words, because that's what everybody's waiting for. It's the people you didn't think went to Epstein Island, who weren't into that kind of, sinister, evil lifestyle. Is there anyone out there where you say, Jeff, I'm telling you, watch out for this name? 617-266-6868 is the number. Suzanne in Beverly. Thanks for holding, Suzanne, and welcome.
I just wanted to tell you that there's a podcast from England. His name is Sean Atwood. He does a whole thing on Jeffrey Epstein. He's written a book on Jeffrey Epstein, and they have a client list. How would they get that?
Well, remember, Susan, forgive me. Susan, as someone who worked at the Washington Times for about almost 10 years, the Brits have lower standards when it comes to journalism than we do. I'm not saying they don't have great journalists. Look, I subscribe to two papers, The Telegraph and The Times of London. But they will go with, say, a single source on anonymity that here in America, at least up until recently, journalists are always trained two sources. They have to be two independent sources who don't know each other to corroborate anything. So their standards are much lower than ours. So I would just say be careful. That's number one. Number two, he doesn't know the client list because I think he's talking about the flight logs. That's a very different story. It's one thing to have flown on Epstein's plane. That's one thing. It's quite different to be one of the people on the island who was there having, relations, having sex with underage girls. So we know the names on the flight logs. That's public knowledge. And that's the other thing. That Pam Bondi released. And I'll remember this. I never forget it because she went on Jesse Waters. And she said, I've got a bombshell. We've got the files. I've got them. We've recovered them. They're here. Forgive me. They're here. We're going to release them. Huge release. So she really built it up. All she ended up releasing were the flight logs. But we've already had the flight logs. That's okay. So what? That's old news. So everybody was really disappointed. And that's when doubts began to emerge right away. Is she hiding something? Is she not serious? Is she playing games? Is she trying to deflect and distract? But, as for this podcaster, I don't know him, never heard of him. But if he says he has the client list, he's lying. The client list has not been released. Final word to you, Susan.
I just want to know, what about Virginia Dufresne? I mean, she's passed away. She's one of Epstein's victims that's been sacrificed.
That's a great
point.
And
I think Biden has gone there too.
Well, my money would be that Biden. You're talking about someone, Jeff, whose name has not been thrown out there. I would not be surprised at all if Joey, on multiple occasions, went to Epstein Island. Wouldn't be shocked at all. At all. By the way, Bill Clinton apparently went nearly 24 times. And remember, he's assigned Secret Service, right? He's a former president. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just two very quick things. I want to go right back to the jammed phone lines. 617-266-6868. Number one, getting a lot of text messages and emails saying, Jeff, what Richard said Richard from New Hampshire, what he said was incorrect about Greece. Greece has not legalized or decriminalized, say, pedophilia or man-boy, sexual relations or minor attracted persons, as they're now trying to call them. That this is not true. So we had Sandy look into it. What they did do in Greece, and it's still illegal, it's still criminal, but they just categorized it as a disability. Still can't do it, still against the law, still a crime, but for whatever reason, they've categorized pedophilia as a disability. For whatever reason, they've also done the same thing for pyromaniacs. I'm not kidding. It's still illegal. You can't just burn stuff, but they've categorized that as a disability as well. So I don't know why, but that's Greece, and that's what they've done. So there is no legalization of pedophilia in Greece. Now, secondly, Suzanne talked about Virginia Giuffre. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She was a victim of Prince Andrew. She was a victim of Epstein. She was one of these underage girls that they exploited and abused. She's a sex crime victim. She apparently was hit by a bus and then dramatically said she's going to die in a couple of days. Well, she didn't die in a couple of days, but she did end up dying. And apparently the media was reporting that she died of a suicide. Her family, especially her father, but her whole family, is adamant that she did not kill herself, that she was killed. Now, this begs the question, what really happened to Virginia Giuffre? Was she murdered? Why was she murdered? Were they afraid that she would name names? Not just Prince Andrew, but other people that she saw there and other crimes that she saw there. Again, I said this before and I'll say it again. I don't believe Epstein committed suicide. I don't believe Virginia Giuffre committed suicide. I just don't. And so the bodies now are starting to pile up. And you have to ask yourself, what are they afraid of? What's in those files that's causing them now to do these things? Because this is bold and this is brazen. And you've got her father saying, look, we were in constant contact with her. She didn't have suicidal thoughts. She wasn't someone who was talking about suicide. Quite the opposite. Very positive, very optimistic, very uplifting. Had a lot of things to look forward to. Her whole family says, no, there's no way that she killed herself. No way. 617-266-6868 is the number. So we're dealing with something here that's clearly very evil and very sinister. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Listen, what we got to look at is what's been going on. President Trump campaigned for 2 years, solid years, to release the Epstein Island list. So, and on top of it, they had 4 years to install George Soros AGs and judges. Okay, now we got to look at this, Jeff. The North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis refuses to vote for President Trump's pick, Ed Martin, for Attorney General in Washington, D.C. This is where the dominoes would fall. It would expose rigged elections, the corruption of January 6th, corrupt politicians involved in the D.C. sewer. The dominoes would fall, Jeff. Ed Martin and Pam Bondi would work hand in hand, and you would see Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, John Podesta, Karl Rove, Ben Rhodes, Ari Fleischer, Lisa Monaco, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Cheneys, the William Burns, Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland, Mark Meadows, Mike Pence would be in serious trouble. Jeff, this guy is from 2023 and 2025. Tom Tillis from North Carolina has a 39F voting record. Lifetime 59. Okay? Senator Tom Tillis voted for Attorney General Merrick Garland, and who went after conservatives.
Oh, you nailed
like
it. Oh, you nailed it. I mean, you're right. Look, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but you're dead on. Here you've got Trump's pick for U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. Now, you may say, well, okay, Jeff, fine. What's the big deal? Washington, D.C. is January 6th. It's the Epstein files. It's corruption in Washington and on Capitol Hill. Ed Martin has been prosecuting people for being overzealous in going after the J6ers. He's actually holding some of the prosecutors who went after J6ers accountable. Ed Martin is Trump's guy. He's a pit bull. He's a bulldog. He's the one guy you want as U.S. Attorney. And guess what? Uber Rhino, Chamber of Commerce Republican Tom Tillis has now come out and said, I'm not voting for him. I'm going to sink him. I'm going to sink this guy. Now, why would you sink this guy? He wants to expose the Epstein files. He's openly said, I want to prosecute people in those Epstein videos. I'm going to go after every single one of them. I want to expose what happened on January 6th. You know, the whole, I want to put politicians in jail. That's my job. I'm going to put politicians in prison. And Tillis is now leading a jihad to sink Ed Martin. Now, why? I think Tillis is clearly compromised. I think there's no question. By the way, he needs to be primaried. After this, to me, this is the final straw. He's got to go. And you're right. This is the same Tom Tillis who said, no problem. He voted for Merrick Garland. So, you see, Merrick Garland was acceptable to Tom Tillis. But Trump's guy, Ed Martin, Mr. Anti-Deep State, isn't? No. That's the problem. That's exactly the problem in Washington and with the Republican Party. Too many corrupt establishment globalists. And then Tillis brags how, well, I'm sinking Ed Martin because I just can't see. And by the way, he even admitted this. He said, in any other district, he goes, I'd vote for him because he's a great lawyer. He's a great prosecutor. He said, no, just not for Washington, D.C. And he says, he's just a bit too controversial for Washington, D.C. And then he says, I've got Trump's back. I go, yeah, like Judas. Yeah, the way Judas had Jesus' back. Yeah, you've got his back. Yeah, your idea of watching his back is, so where do I stick the knife in? Do I stick it in here, or do I stick it right in the spine? So anyway, you're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. And look, when everything is said and done, it's quite obvious. There is no appetite in the Republican leadership. There is no appetite in the Republican establishment to get the Epstein tapes, the Epstein files released. Why? Why? You have to ask yourself. If this implicates top Democrats and some of the most powerful people in the Democratic Party and in Hollywood, which is the fundraising base of the Democrats, it will destroy your enemies. What's the problem? You should be salivating over this. You should be pushing it, urging it, encouraging it. Instead, dead silence. Why? I think it's because they're implicated as well. I can't read the evidence any other way. And it goes back here, just to Massachusetts, same thing. Here you have a state audit that, if you open up the books, would destroy the Democratic Party, would unveil billions and billions and billions in massive bribery, embezzlement, corruption, kickbacks, financial crimes across the board. And yet, outside of a handful of a few principled conservatives, the Republican leadership, the Republican Party, led by Amy Carnevale on the Mass GOP, and Brad Jones, the House Minority Leader, these two losers, they don't want to touch this audit. They don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. What are they afraid of? I'll tell you what they're afraid of. Because the Republicans have been wetting their beak as well. Not all, but many of them. And so they're just as implicated as the Democrats. So let's just sweep this. Let's pretend the vote in November 2024 on ballot 1 never happened. Sweep it under the rug, baby. Trump was elected to clean up the deep state. He promised to clean up the deep state. The Epstein files goes to the heart of the deep state. They were using it for compromat. They were using these files, these videos, these tapes to blackmail any of their enemies, any of their opponents, influential, powerful political leaders, people in business, corporate America, judges, justices, foreign leaders, you name it. And you're just going to sit on that bombshell? I don't think so. I wouldn't. Why would you? 617-266-6868 is the number. Something is very wrong here. Debbie in Boston. Thanks for holding, Debbie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Debbie?
Good, thank you. I just wanted to talk a minute about the death of Virginia Giuffre and the circumstances surrounding that. In 2015, she sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation of character, and she also filed a suit previous to that because she wanted documents that she had released. And apparently those suits went through the U.S. Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, who in 2019 ordered the release of the documents. The first batch was released on August 9th, 2019. And it implicated Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, but more importantly, a whole slew of their associates. Isn't it ironic that the next day Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell? I think that the death of Virginia Giuffre is no accident, and I think it's a warning shot to anybody who wants to spill the beans.
Oh, I agree. Look, when I heard about that accident, so-called, I'll put this in air quotes, the accident that she had, And then the pictures of her and how her body was all smashed up. And then this poor woman saying, I'm going to be dying in the next couple of days. I'm like, this is like something out of Putin's Russia. Really? And then, her whole family comes out after she does die. And suddenly it's like, this was no suicide. So let me get this straight. She gets hit by a bus. The bus doesn't kill her. So now you're telling me she just offed herself? And they're like, no, don't believe this. And then you've got other people now who are trying to blow the lid off of these Epstein files, and they're coming out and saying, if I should die, I am not suicidal. I did not commit suicide. So it's pretty obvious. They're sending a message. Of course they're sending a message. Look, I've been flooded with texts. Flooded. I could read hundreds of them. Where every listener out there is texting in saying, it's clear. People are being threatened. And the question is Pam Bondi being threatened? Is Kash Patel being threatened? Are they afraid for their very lives? That's the question now. Because you've got a very desperate deep state. And a desperate deep state is a dangerous deep state. So I think there's no question they're sending a message. And look, I'm going to lay it out there. I think the evidence now is pretty strong. I think Joe Biden was on the Lolita Express. I think Obama was on the Lolita Express. I think the Clintons were clearly on Epstein Island. They were there often. I think Bill Gates. I think you're looking at the most powerful globalists in the world, the most powerful leaders in the world. And the one thing Epstein was good at is he would set up honey trap after honey trap after honey trap. And he knew who liked kids and who didn't like kids. And he dangled them like a carrot. And it's just incredible over many, many years how many powerful people he was able to draw into his web. And, he had cameras installed in every single room in that mansion of his on his island. By the way, including the bathrooms. There wasn't anything there that wasn't loaded up with cameras. So he got it all. He got everything. And notice, if you don't mind, I want to play a cut. And Debbie, I want to get your reaction because I found this very interesting in her response. Okay, listen to Pam Bondi. So here you have Comer, right? Again, very explosive allegations saying, no, they've destroyed it. They've destroyed the files. And they were doing it because the government was blackmailing people. And they don't want that to come out. And that's why they were basically under orders. Destroy everything. Destroy what you can. Destroy the most incriminating, damaging stuff that's out there. So, and he goes, and I told everybody in Trump's team. I told Miller. I told Kash Patel. I go, look, guys, get it now. If you don't get it now, you're never going to see him. So, it goes viral. It goes everywhere. It explodes. She's asked. Now, listen carefully to her response. Because her response is incredibly revealing. Roll cut 17 one more time. Mike.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. We still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
Okay. Notice what she says. She says there are videos of Epstein with children or with child porn. Epstein. Just Epstein. Not political leaders, Hollywood celebrities, very powerful people. In other words, she's not saying Epstein and others. Notice, it's just Epstein. It's just Epstein. Only him. Only Epstein. Well, when I heard that, I'm like, look, with all due respect, we know Epstein was a pedophile. We know he was a promiscuous, rampant child molester. Okay, a serial child molester. We know that. He was into kids. We know that. He's dead. There's no story here. We know this already. That's like saying Hitler was an anti-Semite. Yeah, well, we know that. Like, okay, but we know that. You're stating the obvious. It's not, it's almost like she's hedging her bets, right? But the other thing is, it's almost like, well, you're going to get everything. Well, what's everything? Well, it's Epstein. Well, we don't care about Epstein. Really, at this point, I know what he is. I know who he was. Yes. To me, maybe if you had information on him, being murdered, that's about it. But outside of him, okay, yeah, I know he was into child porn. I know he was, bugging kids. I know that. He was buggering kids. We know that. So what? So tell me if I'm wrong. It's almost as if now she's going to release these files, but it's only going to be of Epstein with kids. And then the media is going to run wild and say, oh, look at this. Epstein with this young girl. Epstein with that young girl. And they may throw in a Prince Andrew, okay, who basically, yes, he's a member of the British royal family, but he's got no influence. He's not going to be king. He's not ever going to be in the line of succession. So, he's almost a redundant member of the royal family. He's irrelevant. So they'll throw in a couple of, some collateral damage. They'll throw in a couple of scapegoats. But for the most part, it seems to me the way they're setting it up is fine. But we want to know, is Gates, do you have videos of Gates? The Clintons, the Obamas? Like, Biden? Like, who? Do you have people, do you have, Hollywood stars? Do you have John Roberts? Do you have the people that everybody is saying is on the list? Won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Final word to you.
Josh and Pam Bondi have been so vocal about this list and prosecuting people, and they're coming up empty-handed. Really? And then you have Virginia Giuffre's death on April 25th, which was no accident. And it just bothers me the way that, they have been, that they were going to release the list. And I'm talking about both Cash and Pam. And it's like now I just feel like they're backing down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm getting more and more cynical, pessimistic. I think if they do release something or anything, it's going to be what she's hinting at. It's going to be video after video after video of Epstein either watching child pornography or, having sex with young kids. Okay. That's not the scandal anymore. So something is going on. Something is very wrong. And hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. But it's clear to me that they don't want us to know the whole truth. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Super quick, because I want to go back to the phone lines. People forget this about Epstein, but this is to me so revealing and frankly so damning. He was actually convicted of soliciting sex with an underage girl, a prostitute. He was convicted of it. He pled guilty to it. Okay, he pled guilty. So, he was a known pedophile. He pled guilty to wanting to have sex with an underage girl, to soliciting sex with an underage girl. Now, he got a sweetheart deal. They put him up in this basically almost a halfway house where in the day he could go to his business and at night he'd have to stay at the prison, but it was a very super minimum security prison. Anyway, long story short, once he's done with his sweetheart deal, he goes back to his mansion in New York and he throws a huge, lavish party. I'm talking the finest food, the finest champagne, a sweet table. They said that really you couldn't imagine how many sweets there were on that table. It was packed. This is the part that's shocking. Packed. The who's who of the New York media. Senior editors, New York Times. ABC News. George Stephanopoulos was there. George toasted him. Stephanopoulos literally was toasting what a great guy Epstein is. You've got CBS News was there. NBC, all the top talent from CBS News, NBC News, ABC News, the New York Times, the New Yorker magazine. It was as I said, the elite, the creme de la creme of the New York media. This is after he pled guilty, after he served his sentence. So they knew that this guy was a pedophile, and they still partied with him and said, this is our friend, we love him. I mean, apparently they were drinking, eating, singing into the wee hours of the morning. Well, that tells you everything you need to know. And here, just take a guy like George Stephanopoulos, a rabid anti-Trumper. Rabid. I'm talking, foaming at the mouth. Okay, with that ridiculous, he does this morning show, Monday to Friday, Good Morning America, or whatever it's called. And then he sometimes does that Sunday show of his this week. Here, his own wife on the record said, oh yeah, George and I, we watch pornography with our teenage daughters in the living room. I remember I read this, I'm like, what? No, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. And they're going to watch it anyway, so we say watch it with us. So, I'm like, how does this guy still have a job? He's watching porn with his wife and his two underage teenage daughters in the freaking living room. And he parties with Epstein, a known convicted pedophile. Now you know why the media wants to cover up this story. Because it's not just going to take down politicians. It's not just going to take down Hollywood celebrities. It's not just going to take down foreign leaders. It's going to take down much of the fake news media. You phonies, you frauds, you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are jammed. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, you hit it right on the button. Bondi only mentioned Epstein. Well, it's all about extortion. It's all about murder. And it's all about ownership. Who owns who and why. Clinton didn't get to where he was for some unsimple reason. He got there because of who he was. He was a person that could be controlled and had a good line of BS. He was a serial rapist when he was the Attorney General of Arkansas. Obama, we know all about him. So let me give you two stories about a Republican and a Democrat. It doesn't make a difference which one. They are cultivated, they are owned, they are prime candidates like Biden to lead a country, etc., etc. They're puppets, they're tools, they are not geniuses. I'll give you two stories. Justice Roberts, adopts two kids from Ireland. But guess what? Their underage mothers were probably taken illegally out of Ireland and admittedly to two unnamed Central American countries to have those two babies. I call that human trafficking. Who probably allowed that to happen? George Bush, okay? That's how he became owned. And yeah, he may be a pedophile as well. I'm just saying, I call that human trafficking and probably broke a lot of laws in Ireland. Okay, so let's go to the other side of the coin, Obama. We all know about Larry Sinclair. Got a couple of books about his alleged sexual relationships with Obama, and many, many gay acquaintances of Obama who were murdered in Chicago and several other states, coincidentally, while he's running, getting ready to be propped up and run for president. Okay. Larry Sinclair went to the Washington Press Club to start off the book tour for his one and second book, right? Revealing supposedly all this stuff. And he was a lowlife, don't get me wrong. Several weeks before the Democratic primary, okay, an arrest warrant was sent to the...
I always promised you, my friends, that the Kuhner Report would be one of the last free speech zones left in America. And that's why when it comes to the Epstein files, I'm not going to hold back. Everything is on the table. Everything. Because I don't believe in censorship. I believe in speaking the truth and let the chips fall where they may. 617-266-6868. Lisa in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Kuhner Country.
Hi, Lisa.
Jeff, so I get so crazy when you guys throw Pam and Cash under the bus. Let me just say this. In the regular justice system before Trump, right, every prosecutor, they're convinced that they can win a case. So now you take the fundamentals of prosecution and you add Trump, D.C., corrupt judges, 89% of the jury pool, and you put that all together. They've been there for 15 minutes. Let's face it. Cash, not even 2 months. Pam Bondi, maybe 6 or 7 weeks. I mean, this isn't Trump time. This is real life. We feel like it's been a long time. But when I tell you that number one, they don't discuss what investigations they are doing, ever. If you've ever watched a congressional hearing with the FBI director, they dodge and weave because, we don't discuss ongoing investigations. So there isn't a person outside of a very small circle who knows what they're investigating. And if they say they do or they don't, it's a lie. That's number one. Number two, they have to clean up the whole Justice Department and the FBI to figure out who they can put on certain cases. That takes a minute. Number three, your case has to be 10 times as solid as any other case ever presented because you're presenting in front of people who want to take you down. So everybody needs to just take a deep breath and let these people do their jobs. Cash Patel is 100% loyal. Pam Bondi, 100% behind the agenda and loyal. Dan Bongino walked away from millions to do this, to serve again. So get off their backs, everybody. Give them a minute to figure out what and who they're dealing with. Those people then make their cases, and then they have to present it for it to win. And they probably will have rock-solid cases, but will not get the right judge, will not get the right jury, but at least we can bring it to light. So my point is yeah, the Epstein files, they buried JFK's files. Why? Not because somebody killed him, because it was us. Listen to Mike Pence. Listen to what this government has been capable of since basically World War I, or I'll be generous and say after World War II. So we are a bad government. There are good people in it, but this government has way too much power, and they are corrupt. So you have to be very careful about what you are going to divulge about this deep state. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is way bigger than anybody can fathom.
Well, Lisa, look, you're making excellent points. I'm not saying Pam Bondi should go. I said I'm going to give her till the end of the summer, and we should start to see results by then. But look, let me just ask you this. Why can't Pam Bondi release the client list? Why? I don't understand. You're not even saying you're going to prosecute anybody. You're just saying, no, look, here's the list. These were the people that were on Epstein's island. And we have the list because they have the black book. Allegedly, that's part of the Epstein files. So we've got his black book. We've got the black book, Jeffrey Epstein's black book. Plus, we've got videos, all kinds of videotape. There's Bill Clinton. He was there. I'm just going to make up, give names. There's Bill Gates. Well, he was there. Okay, well, there's Hillary Clinton. She was there. So why can't she do that? Why is this so hard? Instead, and last point, I promise, because I want to give you as much time as possible to respond, Lisa. Instead, and this is why everybody's very suspicious, and this was a while ago, she runs to Jesse Waters, and she's always on Fox News. And then, with her hair coiffed and, she looks like $1 million, and then says, oh, I've got the files. And Jesse, I'm going to break news right now with you, right now. We're going to be releasing them tomorrow morning. And all she ends up releasing is the flight logs, which is, we had that for forever. So either she doesn't really know what she's doing, or she's out of her league and out of her depth. Am I wrong?
I think so. I do think that this is way bigger than any one normal person can fathom. I think her purpose on Fox News is because she doesn't get coverage anywhere else, and she's trying to get out what they're trying to do. As far as the Epstein files go, I'm not convinced there is a black book. And if there's hundreds of thousands of videos, and if there's just people, that are in the book, but there's no details, you can't slander somebody who may not back in the day even knew what Epstein Island was. You don't have any proof that they did anything. They didn't break any laws. So to attach a regular person like they did to the poor guy from Harvard, the lawyer, like Allen, right? So he was his attorney, and they had him raping young girls. Now, who knows if that happened? But they slandered him, basically. So you can't just willy-nilly drop lists of people that might have literally just been visitors and then figured out what was going on there and never went back again, or, whatever. So, no, I don't think that they should do anything that they can't back up. I think that this is just way bigger than people just play it off as, oh, well, drop the list, or who went to the island. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was a caterer. Who knows what the reasons were? I'm pretty sure not every single person knew what was going on there. And I'm sure there were people who declined whatever was offered to them or refused it. So I can't assume every person that went there is guilty of child, molestation or whatever. So I am so behind Trump, and I am so behind everything that he wants to do. He's only one man, and he has to entrust in his secretaries and his department heads. I just want everybody to get off their backs for a minute. There's so much that they have to go through that it's going to happen. If they can do it, they will do it, is all I'm saying.
No, I understand, Lisa, but look, let me ask you this, and it's not a rhetorical question. It's a very serious question. Would you ever hang out, fly to the island of, vacation with a convicted pedophile? I'm just curious.
Have been before he was convicted, and that can, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I'm not talking before. I'm talking after his conviction. He was convicted, 2008, 2009. So what I'm saying is that, for example, because you mentioned Alan Dershowitz, and no one is saying Alan Dershowitz raped children, but I will tell you this, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have him on the show that often, is he hung around with Epstein after he knew this guy was a convicted pedophile. Now, I don't run with that kind of crowd. Like, I'm sorry. Well, I was his lawyer. Well, you don't have to be his lawyer. You don't have to be the lawyer of a low-life pedophile. Lisa, look, I draw the line. To me, you molest kids, you're scum. You're scum. You're absolute scum. So, the client list is not just were they raping kids. No, I want to know who was palling around, partying with Epstein or with him on his island after he was convicted of being a pedophile. That to me says everything I need to know. I would never associate with a pedophile. Ever, ever, ever. And I'll tell you this, Donald Trump didn't. Yes, he knew Epstein 25 years ago. And the moment he found out, and by the way, he was hitting on, what is it? She was 16 years old and he propositioned her. Epstein did. And when Trump found out, he kicked him out and said, don't you ever come to my club again. I'm done with you. He severed relations. There was no conviction. He just propositioned. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mel in New York. Thanks for holding, Mel. And as always, welcome.
Yes, good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking the call. Yes. I was just calling in regards to a disagreement about Epstein being alive or dead. I got to believe he's still alive, under a different identification, probably over in Israel somewhere that has, deep ties to Epstein. Because if you look at it, you had Capitol Police that mysteriously committed suicide, supposedly committed suicide. Now you got these two guards in this prison. All of a sudden, they're asleep, which they may have been drugged to lose consciousness or whatever to get him out of the prison, out of the jail, and then replace him probably with some Bowery bum that has a similar look of him, of Epstein, and that they could just wheel that person out on a gurney. But if those two prison guards in New York City hadn't, why have they not committed mysterious suicide if they were, awake, alert, not alert, but awake at the time of the transfer or the transfer of the two, like I say, a Bowery bum out of somewhere downtown or down lower end of Manhattan that they could have replaced him with. But it seems very strange that here we are, January 6th. You have these Capitol Police reportedly committed suicide, and these other two that were, at the prison at the time that were supposed to be guarding this fellow, they're still walking the face of the earth. So I don't know. It just something seems strange. Something seems really strange because.
Oh, there's no question. No, Mel, look, there's no question. And look, as always, I always appreciate it when you call, Mel. Look, you've got prison guards who just happened to fall asleep, so they couldn't witness the so-called suicide. See, I think he was murdered. That's, I think, where you and I slightly disagree on this. You think he's alive. I think he was murdered. I think that's what really happened. But whatever, okay? The fact is, just ask us now what they're expecting us to believe. That prison guards who were supposed to be, working the night shift fell asleep on the most high-profile guy in the most high-profile case in the entire world, not just the country, but the entire world. You've got Jeffrey Epstein, the man who can bring down God knows how many people because of who he's been blackmailing for 20-some years. And then on top of that, you've got cameras that work in the entire prison that he's being held in, except the cell that he's in. It no work. It no work. All of a sudden, it doesn't work. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. No, I'm sorry. I don't believe it. And then it's like the Clintons. Everybody starts mysteriously dying, like this Virginia Giuffre. That's another one. Hit by a bus. That's strange. Okay. Then says, I'm going to die soon. That's very strange. And then, you got the mother, you got the father, you got the family. Everybody's saying, you don't understand. This woman did not have a death wish. She was never suicidal. We were with her all the time. The last thing she ever would do was commit suicide. And allegedly she killed herself. So first somebody tries to run her over with a bus. Then that doesn't work. So then what? She hangs herself or she kills herself? I don't believe it. So it's obvious. They don't want the Epstein files to come out. They don't. And I understand Lisa's point. I do. The previous caller, a very smart call, a very intelligent call. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. I understand that. And you don't want to slander or smear people. But we're not asking, I get it. Look, I mentioned George Stephanopoulos. I'm not saying he raped children, obviously. But the question is, what the hell were you doing partying with Jeffrey Epstein after you've been convicted? You're freaking scumbag. That's what you are. So I think we have a right to know who the hell went to that island after he was convicted. And from everything I've read, they say there is a black book. It was a notorious black book. Ghislaine Maxwell kept the black book for Epstein and put entries into the black book. So, again, we just want the client list. That's all we want. We just want names. So no one says that they're going to be prosecuted. No one says that they're all going to be considered guilty or presumed guilty. We'll see. We'll handle everything on a case-by-case basis. But we want the names in that list. And she's going on about videos of Epstein with children. I'm sorry, I don't care about videos of Epstein with children. I feel very bad for the children. But that's not the scandal here. I want to know the people who were with Epstein when they were doing the kids. And that, I don't think we're going to get. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am. And on that very nice note, bye-bye.